Today I will be talking about break-even. And first of all, break-even is a term used to describe the state of a business where the total costs equal total revenue. As a result, the business neither makes a profit or loss. A loss will be a result of having higher costs than revenue. Vice versa, a business makes a profit when revenue outweighs costs. Overall, a break-even analysis is used by businesses to determine the level of sales needed to generate revenue. Moving on, here we have an example of a break-even chart. As can be seen, there are multiple lines drawn, with the two most important being the total revenue line, here in green, and the total cost line here in red. These lines are both required in order to determine a break-even point when constructing such a chart. Also, on this graph, the fixed costs and variable costs are also graphed. The fixed cost line is the straight dotted line right here, and fixed costs do not vary with output and therefore remain constant. The second dotted line represents the variable costs. The variable cost line runs through the origin here, and this line increases in a linear fashion, showing that costs vary according to output. Lastly, it is important to note that on this graph, on the x-axis, the quantity is graphed, whereas on the y-axis, the costs and revenue are shown and graphed as stated above here. As was quickly pointed out earlier, the point at which the total costs and total revenue intersect lies the break-even point, as pointed out right here. As you can see here, when price, for example, increases, the slope becomes steeper, first of all. The break-even point moves to the left, indicating that there are a lower amount of products needed to be sold in order to break even. Vice versa, when price decreases, there need to be more products sold in order to break even. The slope becomes flatter and the break-even point moves towards the right. Here, when variable costs increase, so does the price, first of all. Total costs remain constant, parallel, to the variable cost line, regardless if variable costs decrease or increase. And the break-even point also moves to the right as variable costs increase. On the other hand, as variable costs decrease, the slope becomes more flat and the break-even point moves to the left. Also, as variable costs decrease, the margin of safety here increases. The margin of safety is essentially the range of quantity that needs to be sold in order to make a profit here. As you can see, when variable costs increase, the margin of safety becomes smaller and losses become bigger, which are here. So, an example I am going to show today is an example I came up with of a low-budget motel which has just opened and they are charging 100 US per night. The variable costs of this motel are 75 US, while the fixed costs are 15,000 US. So let me just graph this real quick. There we go. So now that we have the variable costs, fixed costs, and the price, we can determine the break-even quantity, which is total revenue, which equals the total costs. So as it's worked out, the break-even quantity would be 600, right here, 600 nights. And using this quantity, the total revenue can be worked out as 60,000, as shown on the graph as well. Lastly, in order to calculate the margin of safety, for example, if I was targeting a level of output or hoping to get 1,000 customers per week, the break-even level is 600, and therefore my margin of safety would be 400. Thank you for listening.